Welcome back, my fellow battle brothers and sisters. Today I have decided to make another video where I share my big brain thoughts and regale you with the mechanical design foibles of Warhammer 40k, now in 10th edition. This time looking at Chaos Daemons. As a means to reduce my time in the editing mines, here's a bit of hobby B-roll. So let's just get into it. Of all the games I've played in 10th edition, I've played Chaos Daemons the most. You can see some of that in my recent thematic bat rep here. Choosing to focus on Chaos Daemons was a choice I made because I find combat to be the most nuanced part of 40k, and playing a melee-centric army helps me grasp the changes of a new edition's fight phase. But very quickly something began to feel off with my Chaos Daemons. One being the cost of Daemonettes, and two being the army rule itself. So let's start with the Daemonettes, which feel to me to be insanely overcosted. I made a post which I found to be an interesting comparison between them and the Chaos Space Marine Possessed. 140 points for 10 wounds of toughness 3 versus 145 points for 15 wounds of toughness 6. And that's just looking at the surface of the comparison. Another interesting comparison is the Chaos Space Marine's Cultist Mob, at just 55 points for 10 wounds of toughness 3, and while comparably slower and worse in melee than the Daemonettes, they have the inarguable advantage of ranged combat, not to mention the lethality boosting benefits of the Dark Pack's army rule. Now, somebody might say, "But Kiefer, I thought you said invulnerable saves are a game-breakingly powerful mechanic." That is true, but, my green fungal-brained pal, it should be obvious that invulnerable saves are proportionally more valuable the better something is. Like if two units have a 5-up invulnerable save, and mostly share the same stat line, but for one of those units having a higher toughness than the other, the value of that unit's invulnerable save will be felt more because that unit is simply tougher to wound. Same if that unit had a -1 to hit, or if it had a feel no pain. It's all the same shit. The unit that is tougher, stronger, or beefier will benefit more from an invulnerable save. So yeah, Daemonettes feel pretty overcosted to me. But beyond that, I also began to notice the benefits provided by the Shadows of Chaos, or I guess, the lack thereof. The Shadows of Chaos is an army ability giving you a system which requires you to work quite a bit in order to gain some fairly lackluster perks. Since GW wants Space Marines to be the standard, I'll just compare it to their toolkit. One, for the record, I find to be tastefully potent. The Shadows of Chaos is a system which activates over the 3 areas of the battlefield. Your deployment zone is always in Shadows, and to get Shadows to activate in No Man's Land or the enemy deployment zone, you need to control at least half the objective markers in those zones. This is updated at the start of any phase. This, my Warhammer friends, is what I classify as a condition, an element which gates whether or not a perk can come into effect. You'll notice many other abilities do not have a condition. Oaths of Moment is one such ability. The Space Marines player always gets to make use of it. So then, if the Shadows of Chaos has a condition, then it stands to reason the perk it provides must be really good, right? Well, it's not. The benefits the Shadows of Chaos provide are actually behind another condition, one which requires friendly and enemy units to pass or fail battle shock tests respectively. But guys, what kills me is that in itself belies another condition, because under normal circumstances you'll need to bring units to below half strength in order for them to undertake a battle shock test. That includes the demon units as well, by the way. So assuming you control the necessary objectives to have the Shadows of Chaos manifest, and assuming you can lower enemy units to half strength, and assuming your units pass and enemy units fail their battle shock tests, the perks the Shadow of Chaos provides are unlocked. And those perks are: your units add 1 to their battle shock tests, and when they pass it, one model regains D3 lost wounds. Or if that unit is battle line, D3 destroyed models come back instead. And conversely, enemy units have -1 to their battle shock tests, and if they fail their test, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. I find it pretty lackluster considering all of those conditions, and because of those conditions, I often find demonic manifestation doesn't really do much. Take a look at this example from my recent thematic bat rep. These Daemonettes are on my backfield objective. On the enemy turn, 4 models were dropped from the unit of 11. Now when it's my turn, even though I'm in my Shadows of Chaos, not enough models were lost to require them to take a battle shock test. So I can't take the test, and hopefully pass, to hopefully get 3 models back from the D3 result. It's bad. On top of that, demonic manifestation as a rule is just poorly designed. It does provide its designed value to units of 1 and battle line units, but what about the elite squads? From a Slaanesh unit's point of view, Seekers are 2 wounds each, and Fiends are 4 wounds. Since they are not battle line, when those units pass all of those conditional checks, only a single model in those units regains D3 lost wounds. Well, guess what? Now we have to add, get this, yet another condition. One which requires that after being below half strength, a model in those units will need to have sustained enough damage to be wounded but not destroyed. So if 2 of my 3 Fiends are destroyed on the enemy turn, and all other conditions are met, they get nothing from the army ability despite having met all of the prior 3 conditions. This is some top tier rules writing. Like, it feels very clumsy, and reminds me of the 9th edition reanimation protocols where your larger wound models couldn't really benefit from it. And GW fixed that shit with the 10th edition version of reanimation. So why didn't they roll over a design principle which can work more cleanly? Did they want the army abilities to be as unique as possible, and so just conceded one of those factions will just have to live with a worse version of the same concept? I can only guess. As you can see, my dear viewers, it seems painfully obvious that the Shadows of Chaos is a rather shite army ability, especially when we compare it to something like Oaths of Moment, an ability which has no conditions and can be quite effective. I'll clarify my position on army abilities. I feel high-quality, elite armies will likely require more potent abilities to compensate for their more expensive units, as the game tends to favor quantity. But I'd suggest that demons for the most part ought to be a fairly elite high-quality faction. They are not the low-quality Skaven rats of Age of Sigmar, or the low-quality Genestealer rats of Warhammer 40k, so it follows they should probably have a very potent army ability. Though, I'll concede my experience with Chaos Daemons is one which is using only 1/4 of the available units, and it may be the case that Chaos Daemons are just that powerful when they're all souping together, which in itself may compensate for an army rule I find to be lackluster. But even then it still follows that there is a problem for pure Slaanesh demons, one which may extend to any pure force of Chaos Daemons. So I'll close with a question. For the purposes of enjoying narrative and thematic games with rules which feel impactful, what would make for some tasteful house rules to enable a pure Slaanesh demon host to really shine on the tabletop? Well, that's it for this one. These were my very deep thoughts on the Shadows of Chaos, and I guess Daemonettes as well. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. And if you really liked it, consider becoming a channel member or patron. It's thanks to their support I'm able to produce videos like this, which is why they have a place on the Roll of Honor. Much thanks to Julius Maximus, and my other generous patrons and channel members. Anyways, there are buttons for liking, sharing, and subscribing, so press the buttons you want to press, and I'll catch you in the next one.